Hello, my name is Morteza Kordi, and in this tutorial, we are going to continue building our P-Calculator application. So now let's go into our Android Studio. So here it is our, let's go into this content under layman.xml. So here it is our layout. And here, I want to show you how to interact with from our Java codes with our layout views here. So for example, we do not have to interact with this P-Calculator text view because this value is constant and we do not have to change it. But let's take a look at this edit text, this text field. We have to actually interact with this edit text because the value that the user enters inside this edit text is going to be a value that we are going to work with. So this means that in order to interact from our Java codes with this one, with this edit text, we need to provide an ID for this edit text so that we can connect our Java codes with our edit text here. And take a look at this text view. We do not have to interact with this text view here from our Java codes because this enter percent text view is going to be a constant value and it's not actually going to be changed. So we are not going to provide or actually an ID for this text view. That's not necessary, but we must actually provide an ID for this edit text. So let's select this edit text, and here you can see this ID attribute at the top. So for the ID, just type in here EDT enter percent and then press an enter key on your keyboard. So this is going to be the ID of this edit text. Let's select this one, this edit text here, enter number. So here for the ID, just type in here EDT enter number and then press an enter key on your keyboard. We also need to actually interact with this button. So select this button, and here just for the ID, just type in here btn calculate and then press an enter key on your keyboard. So here it's going to actually show us this dialog. It says update usages as well. This will update all XML references and Java R field references. So this is very important because when you change an ID of a specific user interface component, we have a file, a Java file inside our project called R. And all of these references, all of these IDs, all of these references are inside that file, and that file is going to be updated constantly. So whenever that we actually run that R application, a new R file with those specific references and IDs is going to be created. So it says that this R file is going to be updated. It's going to be updated when we actually change the ID of this button. So yes, that's true. So just check this checkbox that says don't ask during this session. Just click on yes. We accept that. Select this button, and the ID of this button is btn calculate. And finally, we need to provide an ID for this result text view. Again, we want to change the value of this text view later. We want to actually interact with this text view from our Java codes. So select this text view, and for the ID, just type in here txt result. And then press on enter key on your keyboard. So now let's go into our main activity.java file here. And here inside our main activity class, we can declare some classes here. So first of all, you can see at the top it says the package. So here it is my package name and the project name. So here you can see this import statements. So these classes are actually imported into our file. And whenever we want to use a new class inside our file, some new classes are going to be actually imported into our file automatically. So in order to enable that auto import feature in Android Studio, we need to open the preferences. At the top, just click on Android Studio and then click on Preferences. If you're using a Windows machine, you just need to click on File and then click on Preferences or Settings and then click on So here, just click on Preferences. And here, you can see it says Appearance and Behavior. So we can actually change the appearance, and we can change the menus and toolbars. So if I click on these system settings, you can see these options here. So now let's click on this editor, open this editor, and click on general here. So if I open this general, you can see that this option here, it says auto import. So here it says for the XML, make sure to check this checkbox, show import pop-up. And for the Java, it says insert imports on paste all, show import pop-up, optimize imports on the fly. Make sure to check all of these actually checkboxes here. Add unambiguous imports on the fly, show import suggestions for static methods and fields. So here, when you actually checked all of these checkboxes, you just need to click on OK. So now let's go back to Android Studio here. Now let me show you the emulator. So we have edit text here, right? And we want to interact with this edit text. So we need to actually declare or define an edit text inside our Java file, inside our main activity class. So inside the scope, by scope I mean the opening curly brace and the closing curly brace of this main activity class. So inside this main activity class here, I can say edit text. So here I am declaring this variable actually, edt enter %. So this is the name of my variable. So just put a semicolon here, because here I just want to declare my variable. I don't want to create my variable and initialize it. So we have another edit text that we want to interact with, this one, enter number. So again, edit text, edt enter number, semicolon. And make sure to actually declare these variables as private. So put the private keyword here so that other classes do not actually accidentally access the value of these variables, because those classes do not need to access these values. So just declare them as private. So now let's go inside this onCreate method here, inside the curly braces of this onCreate method. And here I can initialize my edit texts. So I can say edt enter % assignment operator. So first of all, I need to cast this object to an edit text object. You're going to learn more about casting later, but for now just know that we are dealing with views, and the object edit text is actually a subclass of view. So here we must cast our view object to an edit text object so that the compiler knows that we are dealing with an edit text object, not a view object. So here just type in here find view by ID, because we want to connect our object with our user interface component inside our layout. We need to say find view by ID. Inside the parentheses, just type in here r.id.edt enter %. So now this object is actually connected to this edt enter %, and that reference is actually stored inside this variable edt enter %. So you can see that the name of my variable and the name of this ID is actually the same. You don't have to do that. You can actually change the name of this variable, but I prefer that the name of the variable and the name of the ID to be the same. And again, this is not a must. You can change the name of your ID, you can change the name of your variable. These two names do not have to be the same. So now let's actually initialize our edt enter number variable. So here just type in here edt enter number assignment operator. Let's cast this object to an edit text object. Find view by ID r.id.edt enter number, edt enter number semicolon. Okay, so now we initialized our actually edit text objects. So now let me show you the emulator. So let me close this keyboard. So we also have this button, calculate the result button. So we also need to declare a variable inside our file, and we need to connect our variable with our with this button user interface component. So inside our main activity class here, I can say, so let's just type in here private, and the name, the type is going to be button, and the name is going to be btn calculate, semicolon. So now let's go inside this onCreate method. Let's say btn calculate assignment operator. Let's cast this object to a button object. Find view by ID r.id.btn calculate, semicolon. So now we actually connected our object here with this btn calculate user interface component. And we also have this text view result. So let's also declare a text view inside our main activity class. Let's say private text view txt result, semicolon. And now let's go inside this onCreate method. Let's say txt result, assignment operator. Let's cast this object to a text view object, find view by id, art.id.txt result, semicolon. So here it is, actually our initialization process. And now that we actually declared and defined our objects here inside our main activity class, now we can actually go inside this onCreate method. And here I want to create a listener for this calculate the result button. So what is a listener? A listener allows this button to listen to some type of interaction. So whenever the user actually interacts with this button, that listener is going to be notified, and it is going to actually do something according to the logic that we put inside the body of that listener. So let's go inside this onCreate method here, and we can say btn calculate dot set onClick listener, and here inside the parentheses just type in here new, put the new keyword here, hold the shift key down on your keyboard, and then press on the letter V key on your keyboard. So now the autocomplete feature of Android Studio is going to show you this option. It says onClick listener, 2 curly braces, and inside the curly braces you can see this dot dot dot. Choose this one and then press on enter key on your keyboard. So the Android Studio is going to actually put these codes automatically for you. So what is this? This is actually an anonymous inner class that implements the onClick listener interface, and because that anonymous inner class implements that this onClick listener interface, this method here is actually also overridden here. It is put here. So you are going to master interfaces later in this course, but for now I just wanted to introduce you to the process of creating a listener for a specific user interface component in Android. But don't worry, this is just a method. Here, this is an anonymous inner class. An anonymous inner class doesn't have a name. It is actually anonymous. So for now, just know that we have a method, and this method is going to be executed. This onClick method is going to be executed whenever the user interacts with this calculate the result button. Whenever the user touches this button, this onClick method here is going to be executed, right? So let me show you how it is done. So for example, I can actually change the background color of this text view whenever the user touches this button, whenever the user interacts with this button. So here I can say txt result dot set background color, and here I can say, so hold down the shift key on your keyboard, choose the color class dot, for example, I can change it to yellow. I can change the background color of this txt result to yellow whenever the user interacts with this button. So let's run the app now. Let me show you the emulator. So now here, if I click on this button, now you can see that the background color of this text view is actually changed to yellow, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Now let me comment out this line of code so that it is not going to be executed, or you can actually delete it completely. So here, inside this onClick method, I can put the actual logic, the main logic of the application. We want to say that, for example, the user enter the %, and then we can say the user we can actually allow the user to enter the number, and then we can show the result. So for example, we want to get the 30% of the number, for example, 200. What is going to value? What is going to be the result? We want to get the 30% of the number 200, so the result is going to be outputted here in place of this result text view. So we want to get that value. We want to do some calculations here, some math stuff. Let's go inside this Android Studio. Let's go inside this onClick method here. So here, first of all, we need to get the value, the % value, which is going to be a numeric value, right, of this edit text. So whatever value is entered inside this edit text is going to be actually of type editable. We need to convert that value to a float value so that it is actually of type numeric, a numeric value, right? So for example, this 30 here that is entered here is going to be of type editable. We need to convert the data type of this number to a float value so that it is actually a numeric type, and then we can do some calculations on that numeric type. So here, inside this onClick method, we need to create a variable of type float. So we can say float, and the name of this variable is going to be percent numeric value. assignment operator. So here I just need to say float, so a class called float with capital F dot parse float, and here we can pass a string value to this method, and that value is going to be converted to a float value automatically by using this method. So inside this parenthesis here, I can actually get the value of this edit text. I can say edt enter percent dot get text dot toString. So we got the text of this edt enter percent, and we converted that value to a string value. And now this value is going to be converted to a float value by using this method, and the result is going to be assigned to this variable percent numeric value. So let's put a semicolon at the end of our statement. Let me create a new line so that you can see what's going on here better. So now we need to divide this value that is entered here. For example, we have this percent here, 30%, right? So we need to divide 30 by 100 in order to get that decimal value, and then we can actually get the total result, get the actual result. So here we have the percent numeric value, right? Now we need to divide this percent by 100 in order to get that decimal value. So let's create another variable of type float, and the name of this variable is decimal value assignment operator. So here we have these percent numeric values, right? So I can say percent numeric value divided by 100 semicolon. So now that we have the decimal value, here again I can create another variable of type float, and here I can say the name of this variable is result assignment operator. So here, now that we have this decimal value, we can say decimal value multiplied by, so here in order to actually get the result, we have this decimal value, right? So the user enters another value here inside this edit text, this edt number actually. edt enter your number. So for example, we want to get the 30% of 200, right? So the result, this decimal value is going to be multiplied by this value, by the value that is entered here inside this edit text here, this edt enter number. So now we need to again say float dot parse float, and here we need to actually refer to our edt enter number dot get text dot toString. So in this way we are accessing our edt enter number, and then we are accessing the text, and finally we are converting that text to a string value. So we passed this value here to this parse float, so it is going to be converted to a float value, and the result is going to be multiplied by this value, decimal value. So let's put a semicolon at the end of our statement. Let me create a new line here so that you can see what's going on here. This decimal value is actually multiplied by this value, and here we have the result. So finally we can say txt result dot actually set text. So in this way, by calling this set text, we can actually set a text to this txt result here. Let me show you the emulator. So here it is our txt result. So txt result dot set text, and here again, because this is actually a float value, we need to convert that value to a string value, because this setText method actually accepts a string value, not a float value. If we pass a float value to this method, our application is going to crash. So let's actually say that float dot, this time just type in here toString. So we can pass a float value to this method, and it is going to be converted to a string value, and then we can actually output that value to the screen. So that's it. Now we can run the app. Let me show you the emulator. So here it is, the layout. So let's put the percent here. So for example, I want to get the 70% of the, for example, number 300. Now let's click on this calculate the result button. So here it is, the result, 210. That's it. So hopefully you have actually learned a lot in this lesson, and I tried to show you everything that you needed to know in order to actually start creating Android applications in Android, applications for the Android 8 platform. So we are going to add lots of applications, lots of tutorials about creating production ready applications to the course. Stay tuned. If you have any questions, please post a discussion in the course, and then I'll do my best to answer all of your questions. Thank you very much for being a student of this course, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.